All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody who has joined us from different locations. Welcome to Kony Quantum Release webinar. My name is Tanmay, and I'm the community manager at Kony. We are very excited to announce Kony Quantum, which introduces powerful new features and enhancements for low-code app development. This update speeds mobile and web app development with no compromises. Not to mention, our amazing new hikes make it incredibly easy to get started with guide and will guide you to you to step by step through the application development. So today we have Senior VP Product Management Kony, Matt Terry, and Senior Directors of Kony Product Management, Faizan and Suhas. They're going to unpack Quantum for you during the webinar. So before I start the session, make sure if you have questions during the webinar, post it in the Q&A panel. Do not use chat box. We have mentors today monitoring the Q&A panel. So post all your questions in the Q&A panel. And we are also recording this webinar, and we'll post it in the articles area in the Basecamp. So if you want to share it later with your peers, friends, colleagues, make sure you do that. You can go to events page on Basecamp and take the recording from there and share it with all your friends later. We also have a couple of polls during the webinar that we have set up for you. Make sure you participate and cast your votes and contribute to it. So let's start the presentation. Over to you, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks to everyone for joining. We wanted to start the webinar today by showing a recap of our previous releases. I won't go through each of the bullets here, but this just summarizes the main points of each of the releases. And the theme here is a continued investment in the power of the Kony platform, but also in simplification. Simplification in the areas of building web applications so you can get functionality out to your customers really quickly via web app. Simplification of using offline functionality, simplification in the area of DevOps and release management. And this has been a growing theme for us. To make the power of the platform easier to access and learn for new users and less technical users. And that brings us to today's conversation about the latest release from Kony. And this is our Kony Quantum release. So you may have seen our press release where we talked about and launched the Kony Quantum name. So this is a shift for us. So it's a big change with the way that we release our product. We think about our feature set and opening up the powerful functionality of the platform to any user. So if you kind of build out all of the different features here and themes of Kony Quantum, the big one is to make sure that you're able to go as fast as possible when you're building applications. So it's a huge focus on speed. But then also the second pillar is around scale. So the ability to build an application, but then scale it out to a large set of users, a large set of capacity, and also being able to build more and more applications and manage those. But not without taking any limitations on tapping into the latest technologies. So that's why our third pillar is to innovate freely. So we'll continue to invest in what the analysts call next generation experiences. So this includes chatbots, augmented reality, authentication through biometrics, and a lot of these we'll be exposing to our customers through Marketplace. So keep an eye on the news in Basecamp and new components that are available in Marketplace. There'll be a new chatbot framework coming out that you can use in your applications. So we'll continue to give you this speed of low code, but then this tagline of without limits means that we're going to stay very close to our heritage of a very powerful platform that gives you these next-gen experiences. And then the last pillar is around experience. So we really take it seriously that the user experience of an application is critical, and that's not just for B2C. We have a lot of customers that have high-end B2C applications. The experience is critical to those scenarios. But we also think that user experience makes applications easier to use and increases adoption even for employee apps. So we'll never move away from the heritage of Kony of letting you build the best applications available in the market. So with this release of Kony Quantum, our tagline is low code without limits. So we're taking the power of the platform and making it easier to access, but never getting away from that heritage of not having a wall that you're going to hit when you're using a platform. You always have the deep, powerful capabilities, but we want to really focus on simplification, and that's why it's such a big release for us that we're shifting the name of starting today with this release and going forward of calling it Kony Quantum. Now, to get Kony Quantum, all you have to do is upgrade to the latest version, which is 8.4. So this slide shows you kind of a breakdown of what we mean by this tagline of low code without limits. So, low code, there's a lot of low code tools out there, and they're focused on starting fast and staying fast, maximizing productivity, and making it very easy to tap into data. So that's kind of table stakes. But our differentiation is the without limits part of this. So we're focused on UX, focused on native, focused on fast and easy and integrated DevOps, focused on enterprise-grade security, giving you the innovation that you need to hit these next-gen experiences around chatbots and AR, VR, and letting you build applications for both employees and consumers from the same platform, but also omni-channel. So you can hit web and tablet and desktop and even wearables or these conversational immersive apps all from one platform. And then lastly, around scalability, enterprise-grade scale, globally, cloud offerings. So that's our focus. That's really what Kony Quantum is all about. And with that, I will turn it over to Faizan and Suhas to walk us through. The only last thing I want to cover is an updated diagram just to bring all this together to make sure you really understand what the Kony Quantum product and platform includes. This is our product architecture diagram showing you how all the components relate. Visualizer is still key for front-end app development. Kony Fabric is still key to back-end integration. Our cloud offering, complemented by Kony Marketplace for reusable assets, and our DevOps services for SDLC. So if you kind of want to explain what Kony Quantum is, what the Kony platform is, we think this is the best diagram to explain all the product features and their relations to each other. So like I said before, if you want Kony Quantum, it's the same tooling our existing customers are used to, but with this release, we're putting a tremendous amount of simplification and productivity power in the hands. So you just need to upgrade to 8.4 to tap into this and get the features that Faizan and Suhas will walk us through. So over to you, Faizan.
Thank you, Matt. That sets up a good stage to what we are going to discuss next, and I'll dive right into the new and exciting features in version 8, Service Pack 4 of Kony Quantum. I'll start with the enhancements on the front end. So today we will discuss 5 major areas. One is the simplified onboarding. 2, ease and speed of low code. 3 is productivity, build, and publish enhancements. 4, modern web and native experiences. And finally, we will look at the new and exciting AI-assisted development capabilities within the Kony Quantum release. So what we are going to also do at the end of this is we are also going to look at some additional features, and we'll quickly summarize what are the additional features within the product as part of this release, apart from these 5 focus areas that we have today. So let us start our first section. What we have been investing over the last few releases is the simplified onboarding of users, and this not only includes the first time users or the first time experience of users within our products, but we have been trying to invest in areas which could even help the low-code developers as well as our existing developer base, right? So with that, what we did is we've added some new features within within Kony Visualizer. So here you see the new onboarding experience where the product Visualizer directly recognizes that I'm logged in and then gives me details on the app viewer. But what you see over here is this new hike catalog. Now, one of the core features we introduced in Service Pack 3 was the concept of hikes, and our users really liked this, and the first-time users as well as the low-code developers saw this as an easy way to learn to use the features within Visualizer. So to that effect, we have further enhanced this concept in Visualizer, and with SP4 release, we have added a full catalog of hikes. Hikes provide a streamlined onboarding experience that helps improve the awareness and usability of the product. So this in-product learning system guides the users through various scenarios and improves the generalized enablement. So what you see is with this release, we have added more than 25 hikes, and these hikes are carefully categorized to help users develop a full native app and a full web application from scratch. Not only that, we have also added hikes like developing a CRM app or using a Salesforce connector or designing the layout, which covers the advanced concepts for our more advanced users and for new users as they continue to explore Visualizer. So what you see with these hikes is as soon as the user selects a specific hike, it starts guiding the user through, the concepts of Visualizer. So if you look here, what it does is it gives you a step-by-step, guidelines of what you need to do to build your app. So in this particular case, it's asking the user to import an existing app from a set of sample applications. So the user does that, and he has his first project opened within Visualizer. If you notice, there is this green arrow pointing to specific areas that the user needs to focus on while he is following these instructions, right? So it's a very step-by-step process within Visualizer guiding you to various aspects of developing your app. And these hikes are readily available on the left navigation menu within your Visualizer, as well as within the help menu at the top. So if you go into the help menu, if you go into on the left menu, you always find the hikes. And these what we are working on is that we are working on evolving this hike catalog with more and more hikes, and we will keep adding further hikes to help with help covering further features features in the future releases. The hike catalog is available in Visualizer Starter, which is Visualizer Starter is our much more lightweight version of Visualizer, and it's geared towards helping not only the first-time users as well as the low-code developers in terms of quickly onboarding and getting up to speed with all the features of Kony. Now, the next topic we will discuss today is one of the core features of Quantum, which is adding the ease and speed of low-code to the product. And how we did this is by adding some features which make it fast and easy to not only use the product, but the ability to build apps from easy-to-use components, drag and drop data, and integration and data mapping as well. So what you see here is a new panel on Kony Visualizer, which is called the data panel. Now, this data panel provides a couple of things. One is it provides these pre-built sample services that the users can use within their application that they are developing. Some of these, one of these is like an identity provider, like a pre-built Microsoft Active Directory connection that you have available, which you can, add to your login screen. Or some of the other generic kind of services that are available pre-built are like things like the locations, things like countries, and employee data, product data. So you can directly use these within your application. Now, if you do not have, or if you do not want to use these sample services, what you can do is you can go and configure a new service right within Visualizer. So we have this project settings where you can go into the configure new option, which gives you access to all our existing connectors and all our existing services that you can configure directly through Visualizer. So these not only include the identity services and which also include the OAuth-based services, but also the integration and object services, right? So you can go in, you can configure a new integration service, or you can configure a new object service and use that within Visualizer, which we will see in the next couple of slides. So the takeaway from this is we have this new data panel. It's in the top right corner. You find sample services over there, and this is the panel that helps you integrate with the backend connectors. It helps you integrate with services, and it helps you integrate with Fabric right within Visualizer itself. Now, if we look at it, let's start looking at an example over here. So this is an example of how I would connect to an identity service, right? So the typical way that we build apps today with Kony Visualizer is we drag and drop widgets. And in this particular case, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build this login screen, right? So it's a typical login screen. I add, well, one of my branding icons at the top, and then what I'll do is I'll add a couple of widgets for my username and my password, right? So again, it's pretty typical of how a login screen would look. So once you do that, and then you would have a button eventually to, log the user in, and, that's the button that you would usually use to connect to services, right? So if you do this today, what you can do is once you have the button, so what we can do with the data panel or what these these new services is once you have this UI generated, like in this case, I'm using a component to quickly build out my login screen. So I can go in and use a pre-built component, drag it and drop it on an empty form, and directly I have my UI built. Now I can drag and drop my existing identity service onto this login button over there, which prompts me for the action that I need to map this onto, and then I map it to my on-click option on the button, and then I can directly map the username and password fields to the username and password parameters of the service, right? So this is one way of doing it. Now let's look at it another way, right? So this is probably the way where you have an existing UI built, and you would like to do some mapping of an identity service to that existing UI. But what if I generate this UI automatically based on what kind of service you drag and drop? So that's exactly what we're trying to do over here now. I drag and drop a Microsoft Active Directory service, and what it does is it automatically builds my user ID and password fields as well as a button. Now, not only does that, what you will notice now is that if I go to my action for this particular generated UI, you'll notice that it has already created a service for me, and it has already mapped the username and password parameters to the service, right? So it's automatically generating the UI based on what I drag and drop from my data panel. Now, this has a bit of intelligence and awareness with it as well, where if you have a OAuth-based service, what it's going to do is it's going to generate the browser that would link you to that OAuth service, like a Google OAuth or Facebook or things like that. So in this particular case, once I build the app, once I generate the UI, I go in and I can test my the first login page on using my app viewer app over here, right? So I log in and I click on sign in. It says signing successful. So this is an example of how you can not only use your existing UI and can easily connect it to your existing identity services using the data panel, but you can also generate new forms or new UI based on dragging and dropping an identity service directly on an empty form. Now this is another example, and in this example, what we are going to do is we are going to configure a service from Visualizer, and in this particular case, it's going to be a connection to a database. So again, like I said, we have all these services, the identity services on the left used for authentication, and all these services on the right used for either integration or object services to fetch your data. So in this particular case, I select relational database. I go in, add all my configurations for the database. I test my connection, and I'll go in and I'll generate my data model based on what the database has, right? So if you look here, I have all these fields from the database, like address and location. So this is a use case of a location list, right? So it could be a list of branches, it could be a list of ATMs for a bank and things like that. So if you look at what I'm doing, I'm still in Visualizer, but I'm configuring my service over here. and I can see my response mapping. I can test the service. I can see the results from my test. Now, what I'll do is on this form, I'll drag and drop these parameters from the service directly onto my form. And what that results in is the mapping of each of those parameters to the UI that I have on my form, right? So I've all the mapping ready. I have the service integration already done. I can directly, try this out on the app viewer. I go in, test it out, and I see that the service call is being made, and I have all the different, all the data of the locations in my segment widget. This is not only, this can not only be for things like, a list, but also for location-specific UI like a map and things like that. Now, what we're going to see next is another example over here of how we can directly generate different types of UI. So in this particular case, I drag and drop a service. It asks me if I want to generate a list, a detail, or a data entry form. I select a list, and what I see is it automatically generates a list for me, right? And what you will notice is, it does the mapping for me as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create this form for data entry. Again, I'll go ahead and drag and drop this create operation, and it immediately asks me what I want to generate. I say I want to generate a data entry form, and it generates this data entry form. And one thing you'll notice is that it generates different types of widgets based on the type of parameters that I drag and drop on my screen. Now, this includes, switch for a Boolean, date widget for, date fields and things like that. Now, the third thing I'm going to do over here is try to create a details form, and then drag and drop the service again. It asks for what I want to generate. I say I want to generate a detail screen, and it creates a detail form for me. Next, I can go in, and I can add my navigations between these three forms. So what we did is we generated the list form, we generated data entry form, and then we finally generated a details form. And I'm going to connect each of these forms together, and I'll add navigations to each of these forms, and that kind of creates my end-to-end use case or my end-to-end flow of having the list, clicking through the list, getting into the details, and if I need to create one more row in that list, I can click on create and create that list. So this was the last demo in terms of how we can create these, simple UI and simple generation of applications based on data. But not only that, we can map existing UI elements that we have to services using simple drag and drop, right? So that enables us to quickly use components to build the UI, then quickly use the data panel to integrate that, integrate our services with the UI through a drag and drop mechanism, and provides a fast, low-code way to build apps. Now, once we design these apps within Visualizer, the next thing you would want to do is to be able to quickly preview these apps and to be able to build these apps and publish these apps to your runtime, right? And that's our next section. So we have made quite a few improvements, and a lot of these you will notice are on Visualizer Starter, and this enables a lot of our users to quickly preview apps, not only for web but also for native, and quickly build, debug, and publish these apps to to the server, to a runtime environment, right? So let's just jump right into it and see how that works. The first thing we're going to see is this new feature within Visualizer that we call Inline Preview. Now, what this allows the users to do is allows them to preview not only their native apps, but even their web applications directly within Visualizer. So I go in, I select Adaptive Web for native. So this is my native app. And what it does generate is this generates a web output for me, which allows users to, do functional and UI testing directly within Visualizer. They don't have to build a full-fledged app, but this quickly allows users to look at how their app is functioning, how their services are functioning. So in this particular case, it's an app that's built for iPhone. I can go in, I can switch between different versions of the iPhone screen. I can switch between different orientations. I can, try my service invocations, log in and then get into lists and get into details. And I can try all the functionality that's associated with this app, right? So you don't have to go and build the entire app to just do that, but you can quickly preview it using the inline preview. Not only that, the inline preview also allows you to debug your apps very quickly. So I go in, I click on the debug option, and this opens the debug panel for me. Now, on this debug panel, what I can do is I get access to the generated code. I can add some breakpoints. I can, add some pauses as part of, if there is an exception. I can add a pause if we hit a particular breakpoint and things like that. I can add watch expressions. So there are multiple things that I can do as part of debugging itself. So I don't have to go and, connect my device and, try to get into this native debugger and try to fiddle around with tools like, Xcode and, get into all those complexities, but I can directly use the inline preview to debug functional issues within my application, which provides me this fast capability to solve the functional and the development issues that the users usually go through while developing applications, right? Now, this is not only available for native apps, but this is also available for responsive web apps. So if I have a responsive web app, I can go through the same build and preview menu, and I can build this application for previewing in the inline preview, right? So I go in, I select responsive web, I do a save and run. What it's going to do is it's going to open this responsive web application within inline preview. Here I can go in, I can check the different, I can change the width of this browser. I can check the different breakpoints and things like that on the web and ensure that, not only my UI, but my functionality of the app is working as I expect it to. And the same debug capabilities are, again, available within the inline preview as well. So this is the inline preview that's available within Visualizer Starter. It helps you to quickly, develop and test apps and preview apps within Visualizer for native and web. The next topic over here is how do I build and publish a web application? So once you preview your application, the next thing that you would want to do is you would want to publish this application to a runtime environment. So I can go into build and publish web and select responsive web over here and just click on web. So what's going to do is it's going to build my web application, and it's going to deploy this web application on a runtime environment, and it's going to publish this web application there. And it will give me back a URL that I can launch directly by clicking on it, and it opens in the inline preview, and I can, then walk through the application that way. Or what I can also do is I can, copy the link directly from Visualizer and open it in a web browser, or I can share it with other users who can, use the same link to open this published application in their web browser, right? So once in a web browser, you have all the functionalities of the web application. I can log in, I can view the, view the list, view the details, and view all the different functions of the application. Now, this functionality also gives you back the logs. If there are any issues with publishing your applications, or it also gives you the time that it took for publishing your application, and all these publishes and building of the web and native application, as well as the the native web and native preview, are all done in an incremental delta fashion, right? So every build is an incremental build from the last one, so that it makes the entire build process fast, and it increases the total productivity of the users. So now we have seen how you can preview a web application, how you can build a web application, and finally how you can publish a web application to the runtime. Now let's look at the native functionality of this. So if you build a native application and you want to do more than testing the functionality out in an inline preview, what you can do is you can connect your physical device to your computer and directly through your USB device or through Wi-Fi, and preview your native applications on the device, right? So this enables you to test out the native functionality that you are building on your native applications or your native forms, right? So things like Touch ID, for example, right? So features like Touch ID wouldn't work on an inline preview, but the same would work on an actual device or on the App Viewer app. So the App Viewer app is available on the native app stores, the Apple App Store or the Google Play for Android. You can download this application from there and directly then connect your device to Visualizer, which allows you to preview your native applications directly on the device from either using a USB or through a Wi-Fi connection that you have. Again, you see there's a QR code available that kind of simplifies how you can connect to a Wi-Fi and how you can connect your application directly using the App Viewer. Once you preview your native app, the next thing you would want to do is you would want to build and run this native app, and you would probably want to publish this native app as well. So how do you do that? We have this new option that says Build and Publish Native Application within Visualizer. Now, once you select that, there is a bunch of post-build actions that you see at the top. One of them says Publish to my App Store, one says Run on my device, and the other one is to generate a native app. So it gives you all these three capabilities that you can do from as part of building and publishing your native app. In this particular case, what we are going to do is we are going to publish this native application to an enterprise app store. So I click on Publish to Enterprise App Store. I do a build and publish. What I see is I get this pop-up once the build is successful, once the publish is successful, that my application is ready, and I can launch an app store. I have a link to the app store in the pop-up that allows me to launch an enterprise app store. And through this enterprise app store, I can get to my device, which has now to my application, which has now been published to this enterprise app store. And so one of the capabilities that we have introduced with the Service Pack 4 is the Enterprise App Store, right? So this is what you see over here. And the Enterprise App Store allows users to publish their iOS and Android native apps to an Enterprise App Store that's available in all Fabric runtime environments with the Service Pack 4. And this is available at no additional cost and no additional servers to manage. And you can now publish to your own app store directly from within Visualizer. And you also have access to the Enterprise App Store from Fabric as well. And not only that, so let's look at how the native app deployment happens, right? So this diagram shows a logical architecture view on how a native app deployment works, not only for Enterprise App Store, but for a public app as well. The first thing that you will notice is the development landscape, what a development landscape looks like, where the apps are designed and developed by your teams on Visualizer on the client side, and the apps use backend services like identity integration and object services on the server side. All of these consume data from either an enterprise service or a SaaS or a public database. And once the app once the application development is complete, what you do is you deploy this application to a runtime, which is then accessed by the native application, right? And the way you do that is, or the way you distribute that today is through the public app stores like the iOS App Store, the Windows Store, or the Google Play Store on Android. Now, with SP4, we have added the Enterprise App Store, which allows you to host your native app to this Enterprise App Store that resides within your runtime, right? So you can publish these native applications directly to your Enterprise App Store, and then at runtime, users have access to the Enterprise App Store, which is a web app or it's a PWA app, and the users launch the Enterprise App Stores, and from that Enterprise App Stores, they access their applications and download those apps and run it on their device, right? Now, this is very similar to how a web application, comparatively is hosted on the server side as well. So if I go to a web application, you probably use the same visualizer in the front end to create a web application, and then you host your services in the back end. But what you see is the web publish is done to the same server side runtime, and we have this web app hosting on the server side. It's the same runtime where you can host your web application as well as your native app as well. So this is how you do your native app publish and how you do your web app deployment on the runtime using Kony Quantum. If you need more details on the Enterprise App Store, what we have this detailed article on our Basecamp. It's called Simplified App Distribution with Kony. It's available on this link, and you can go through those. There are several things that are detailed in this document, like how do I manage users who are accessing this Enterprise App Store, or how do I use my existing enterprise identity service with this Enterprise App Store? So all those kinds of questions are answered with this particular Basecamp article that you can access and go through. Now, the next topic we're going to discuss is the investments we keep making as part of the product for not only modern web, but native experiences as well. So I'll start with modern web, and we have been making many enhancements over the last few releases on web. And one of the particular enhancements that you may have already tried with our SP3 release is the concept of the progressive web app and a responsive web app. So what we did with our last couple of releases is we added this canvas within Visualizer that allows users to design responsive web applications, set different breakpoints for the different widths or the different size of the devices like mobile, tablet, and desktop, and then also convert those responsive web applications to a progressive web app. For people who are not aware of what a progressive web app is, you can consider it as a web application on steroids, right? So it's a full-fledged web application that follows certain guidelines, certain standards, and it allows users to create lightweight applications that work like a native app, right? So these are lightweight web applications which work like native apps. And there is no requirement for these applications to be submitted to the App Store. There are several advantages that the progressive web apps provide, like it provides better engagement in terms of being discoverable by search engines. Progressive web apps can perform even in slow networks or while being offline as well. So we have introduced several of these features on progressive web apps, and as with SP4, what we have added additionally is this capability of adding push notifications to your progressive web applications. Now, these web push messages use the existing engagement services that we have available as part of our Kony Fabric, and they also use not only the existing engagement services infrastructure, but they also use the existing omni-channel push APIs that you've been using with your native applications. So those are some of the major enhancements that we have made in our web on our web capabilities, but we keep updating our web APIs and several other features on web. So with that, let's quickly have a look at how you build a progressive web application and how you would add messaging to a progressive web app. So in this particular case, I have a responsive web app that I've built, and I go into my settings where I have this option to enable progressive web applications. I check that option, and what I have below that is an option to configure a web manifest file. A web manifest file is an integral part of progressive web apps. This gives you it kind of gives the metadata to the web app to perform various things, like to have a native shell around it, and then to have push notifications working with it, and those kinds of things. And then you see this option that also allows you to set push notifications, which we'll see in about a minute in the next slide. So I go in, I enable push notifications over here. I enable progressive web apps for this particular application. I publish my app to my runtime, and what you'll notice that when I launch this application on my browser on the device, I have this option where I can add this application to my home screen. So I select the Add to Home Screen. It allows me to anchor the application icon on my home screen, and when I launch the app now, you see that it launches the application in an app shell. So I do not see the URL at the top. I do not see the address bar at the top for the web page. I do not see the shell of the web application and all that, but I just directly see my app running on my device as a native app. Similarly, you'll see this app running on the left side on the same app running on the left side on a Chrome browser on a desktop, and the right side on the device. And if I go to my developer tools on this Chrome, what I can see is that the service worker for this web application has been generated as well. Now, these service workers allow these apps to perform faster. They cache the app capabilities. They allow these apps to run offline as well, which you're seeing on the right, where I have enabled offline capabilities within the app, and I can use my app while I'm offline. Now, the last thing I'm doing here is, I'm running this lighthouse test on my progressive web app. Now, this test allows me to test my progressive web apps on the capabilities that I have, and what Kony provides is 100% compliance with all the Google Lighthouse guidelines, right? So what you see here is this particular app, according to Google Lighthouse, is fast and reliable. It is installable, and it is optimized for a progressive web app, which means that, it has all the various capabilities of a progressive web app that Google Lighthouse is expecting from these kinds of apps, right? So, these were the capabilities of the of a progressive web app. Now, let's quickly look at how you can add push messages to these applications, right? So I go back to the settings. I check the box that says Enable Push Notifications. And what I'm going to do after that is I'm going to add FCM Sender ID, all of the push notifications on my, so all the push notifications on my application are driven through the Firebase cloud messaging, and I'll enable push notifications here. I'll add the FCM Sender ID. And then once I add the FCM Sender ID, what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and publish this web application to my runtime again, right? So what you'll notice is now I'll have, I'll have one admin user login and configure notifications for my application for my other users from this particular app. So I go in and I click on Create New Event. And this is an events app, so I'm configuring a new event for the users of my particular, events application. So I go in, I set the time, I set the details, and I add location to it, and then I publish this event. And what this does is it just publishes this event out to my engagement services, and that engagement services then, add this push notification capabilities for all the users. So if as another user, if I go in and open my browser, try to use the application, it asks me if I want to enable push notifications. And at the bottom right, you would notice that, I get a push notification sent directly from my engagement services. I click on the notification, and it opens that particular event within my events application, where I can go in and, look at the details for it. Now, so these were all the native all the web capabilities that we have added within Visualizer, and then a quick recap of how the web application is published and hosted on a services runtime within on the server side, right? So those were the web capabilities, and now what we see over here are some of the native enhancements we have made in this release. We've added, we keep adding these native, capabilities with every release, right? So some of these are, omni-channel widget and API enhancements, as well as several different enhancements. Like in this particular release, we added this simplicity of adding a pinch and zoom, capability within applications. So you can pinch and zoom image widgets. You can add, you can add stickers on images and things like that, and then pinch and zoom and maintain the positions and all of those. But we have also added other API enhancements like the Android app badges, the new push notification events, and the image rotation APIs. We've also made enhancements to the widgets, like the tab widget, text area, maps, and things like that. But we also keep enhancing our security capabilities and our extensibility capabilities. So in this particular release, we've added the capabilities of public key pinning within Visualizer itself, and then we've also added these the extensibility mechanism of integrating a React Native app within with your existing Kony Visualizer app itself. So those were the modern web and native enhancements or experiences that we added as part of the SP4 release. Now, what I would want to introduce you to is the AI assistant development that we have added as part of Service Pack 4. We have added this new concept of Kony IQ with Service Pack 4, and Kony IQ enables smarter design and development through intelligent in-product user journey guidance and assistance through AI and machine learning techniques. Now, Kony IQ is an intelligent assistant. So what it does is it immediately identifies me. It tells me that I can do certain things. When I open it within Visualizer, like, looking through documentation or adding a new, feature from or adding a new component from a marketplace. So in this particular case, I asked for a rating component, and what it does is it finds the rating component for me in the marketplace, but not only does that, but it allows me to download this rating component directly within Visualizer, and it prompts me for, things that it would need to add this component. So I've added this component, and in the library, you see that I have a rating prompt that I've already that gets added to my Visualizer project. So this is one of the things that the Kony IQ can do. Now, there are several other things, like being able to create a component, or being able to ask for help on documentation, or being able to, build projects, or trying to clean up an existing project, right? So what Kony IQ does, it helps improve the developer experience. It simplifies user onboarding and provides innovative solutions to some of these complex use cases, like which you'll see in a minute. What I'll try to do is, so in this particular case, it's a simple task that I'm trying to do with Kony IQ here, like creating a component. But what you can also do is you can ask for things like, I want to translate my whole application into a different language, right? So in this particular case, this app is in English, and I want to translate this to Spanish. So I just ask Kony IQ to translate language, and it asks me what language I would like to translate this to. I say Spanish, and what it does is it goes through and it fetches all the Spanish translations for my applications, and it adds all those to my existing I-18 internationalization keys, and it immediately saves that within Visualizer itself. So I don't have to go through all the experience of, getting these translations, adding these translations, and, adding it to my I-18 keys and mapping it to my widgets and all those. But it makes this complex task of translating applications to different languages by simply asking the Kony IQ here. So the Kony IQ has been launched as a beta release with SP4. You can experience Kony IQ as part of Visualizer. This option is released and is available to all users who have set their preferences as early adopter under the updates menu in Visualizer preferences. So you can go to your Visualizer preferences, set the option as early adopter, and you will be able to experience the power of Kony IQ. Please provide your feedback, and we are looking forward to your feedback on this beta release of this AI assistant development. So these were all the features of this release. If we talked about simplified onboarding with the high catalog, we talked about all the amazing things that the amazing things that Kony IQ can do. We looked at all these low-code features that we have added to increase the ease of development and speed of development, and also we have looked at all the productivity enhancements in some terms of previewing apps, debugging apps, building apps, and publishing applications, not only for native apps but even for web apps. And we've also looked at all the capabilities that we keep adding to, modernize our web and native experiences, right? So like progressive web apps, push notifications on web, and several native widget and API enhancements. Along with all this, what we have is we have a lot of other features that we have added as part of Kony Visualizer, as part of frameworks, and as part of App Viewer as well. Things like being able to use Sublime text editor or within Visualizer, or being able to do public key pinning using the framework capabilities, the capabilities of incremental builds within Visualizer and things like that. And apart from that, we've also added these new features within App Viewer that help use App Viewer with FFIs and with native function APIs and things like that. So you can go into Basecamp and you can learn more about these new features and capabilities. But for now, what I'll do is I'll pass this on to Suhas, and Suhas will cover the backend capabilities of Kony Quantum today. Over to you, Suhas.
Thanks, Faizan. So let's look at the fabric pieces of the V8 SP4. So we'll be looking at primarily in these categories like backend services, console analytics, the DevOps operations that we have done, and offline objects, engagement, and additional features that we can't go into detail as part of this call. So the first feature that we'll look into is the ability to configure notification for fabric services, specifically from a latency and error rate. So we had this feature built as part of V8 SP2 to monitor the services performance as part of the runtime console of Kony Fabric Server. So the features to see the performance by service or operation, version, verb, and see the performance in terms of phases of where time is spent, like in the preprocessor or in the external call or in the post processor, and parsing the data. Those kinds of detail were already present as part of V8 SP2 and SP3 releases. When you also had the ability to look at the data per node and see graphs for service call, error count, and performance. So what enhancement we have added as part of SP4 is the ability to set thresholds to quickly identify which services are having degraded performance. For example, you can set that this is the good range or the expected range for my service to perform, and if it goes beyond a certain limit, I'm in the warning category, and if it is going beyond that, it's probably critical. I have to alert somebody to come and look at it, right? So you can set these kinds of thresholds, and when a certain threshold is exceeded, you can automatically trigger sending emails so that the appropriate personnel are notified that this is happening, right? So we'll look into a video as to how this configuration is being done and how the alerts are sent and how the mail looks like, right? So this is the updated panel that we are having. You can see that we have added coloring so that we know which is in what range, with the green indicating all good, red indicating this, and we are showing that you can see all the nodes, you can see only the errors, or choose which time range you're trying to look at the graph for. So you can look at anything from a 5-minute interval to 1 week. And this is the panel where you're setting the threshold. So you have the ability to set a threshold at a global level, that is for all the services that are being viewed in that particular environment. And you can set the threshold to be a combination of various factors. Like in this case, we have error percentage, error count, and service response time, right? So you can say that, okay, if it is more than 2% error, it is a warning. If there is one single error, I want to be warned. And if the response time is greater than, say, 2 seconds or something, it is a warning. And if it exceeds 5%, I'm thinking, okay, this is critical. It's beyond warning. Somebody has to start looking into it right now. So I can set different values for threshold, and it is a combination of all the factors that you have enabled here that determines if a threshold is exceeded, and depending on that. So when you come to this specific view, we have color-coded it based on this so that you can immediately identify which is a concern, so that you don't have to scroll through everything to identify. So red indicates that this is already in threshold and critical, and an amber indicates that it is in warning, and so on. So we saw that we were able to set it at a global level, but a global limit might not apply to all the services. You might have a specific service which is an orchestration service, which is, calling multiple services. So you are expecting it to take a bit more time than the other services. So what might be a 2-second limit for, a regular service, you expect this to take 5 seconds. So until it takes 5 seconds, you don't want it to throw warnings because you expect it to be slower or take more time because of the extra processing. So you can do this kind of configuration at a service level, and whatever you configure at the service will override what you have set at the overall global threshold. And once you have set that, you can specify who gets notified for what, right? So you can choose who gets notified for what kind of alert, right? So you can, by default, it is not set for anybody. Only if you come to the screen, it is going to show that. But you can choose at what interval it is being monitored, like 5 minutes to 1 hour. You can choose a range. And if you say, for example, set it for 5 minutes, every 5 minutes it is going to check whether something has met this critical or warning level, and it will send an email to all the people that you have put in this list. So you can choose to send it to only account owners or admins or users who have full access to the environment, or you can just send a custom user list. The custom list still has to be people who have access to the environment. If they don't have access, it will not do that. And we give different configuration ability for the server, for the warning as well as critical. This gives you the option like, hey, if it is a warning, it is just going to go into, say, some monitoring system, and it is going to be there, and somebody who's in that shift will come and look at it. But if it is something that is critical, then I'm going to, light a fire against everybody and ensure it gets the immediate attention. So I'll probably send an email to the developer, to the project manager, and all those people so that it gets immediate attention and gets the required visibility. So you can choose the interval and the people so that you might want to check for a warning probably every 5 minutes or maybe every 1 hour. But for a critical, you might want to do it, every 5 minutes so that it is faster and quicker time to react. So you can set these kind of things so that it behaves differently. So this gives you the ability to set automatic, notification whenever the performance degrades for whatever reason it be. So once you have set that, it will automatically send a mail as shown here. So this is an example of a critical alert. So it sends an email with all the services that have exceeded the warning at that specific time. Now, if the warning has not been cleared, it will keep sending that for every time interval that you have configured. So this is a sample of a warning mail. So with this, you have inbuilt monitoring and notification built into the Kony fabric. Now let's look at the next feature, which is to see how you can, set metadata for an object service and use that to control client-side logic. So let me explain what we mean by that. So we have object services which you use to map backend data to client data model, and you have had the ability to call them and keep the data model of the client separate from the backend, which is basic object service that has been there always. So what we have done new now is you can go and define metadata for each and every field, and you can register pre and post processors in the client object model. So we have always had the pre and post processor concept for the Kony fabric service on the back end, but now we have brought it to the object model on the client side so that you can decide if you want to do some data massaging or conversion before you want to show that data to the user. For example, changing something from Celsius to Fahrenheit, or you want to add a currency symbol before it, or you want to encrypt the data, or you want to convert it to a base 64 string before you send to the backend. So all these kinds of processing at a field level can be now done. And you also have the ability to, change the metadata on the server, and app will dynamically get that and be able to act on that. So if you want to say today you want to set encryption for a certain field and tomorrow you don't want to do it, if you change the server configuration and publish it, you don't have to change client app code provided you have configured the if-else cases, and it will work automatically. And you can always use the server-side processing to combine and work with this so as to make a full-fledged use case. So let's look here at a sample where we are going to look at, how you can use this object metadata functionality and pre and post processes and choose to encrypt only certain or to say sensitive fields in a particular object service, and how do we achieve that, right? So here we are seeing the new object service screen with the metadata option, and you can go and click and define any number of name value pairs. It is not necessary to set it for every field, only fields where you want to do some extra processing, you can go and add them. So for example, card number, I want to keep it sensitive. I want to treat it as sensitive, so I'm going to enable encryption for this field. So I'm adding my own field called as enable encryption, and an algorithm, I'm choosing whatever algorithm I want to handle it, and I'm setting this in the metadata. And the other fields which don't need it, I'm not going to have that. And once I've done this, I'm going to go ahead and publish the service definition so that it reflects in the backend. Yep. So once you publish it, you go to the backend and you are generating the object model. So the object model is basically generated based on the backend data model that you have created in the object service, and it creates the respective fields accordingly. And you have this new function called as register processes, where you can go and set a pre and a post processor for that specific thing. So you have the option of setting a pre and a post. And in this specific case, you're only looking at pre, but it is exactly the same for doing that. And you register a callback function and the corresponding variable for setting it. So once you have registered the pre and post processor, the way it works is it triggers calling that only for fields that have metadata. So that way it is efficient. It is not going to call the pre and post processes for every single field, but only if you want to do extra processing and you have set metadata on the server for that field, only then it gets triggered. In this case, the function that we have associated with the preprocessor is a custom function for encrypt. That can specify pretty much anything you want. In this case, we have set it as encrypt and we are using some algorithm. So this is a custom function. So this is, we are giving you a handler. What logic is being written into it is up to the app developer. So any use case which needs data managing or data massaging or data manipulation or conversion, you can put that logic and it will get associated when the specific field is being shown. So here we are doing an encryption and we are going to see a sample of the app when it is being run. So we have initialized the app and we will see that on the server side, my apologies. So on the server side, we are encrypting the payload that is being sent from the client app here, so that when it is going over the network, it is in encrypted format. But we want to decode it on the server and send it as plain text back to the actual backend. So for that reason, we are going to have a decrypt function being written on the server side, and that is using the regular post processors that is already there, pre-processors and post processors that is already available for any object service or integration service. And it will have the reverse logic of decrypting based on the same algorithm. You are going to read it and you're going to decrypt that text and send it across. So here we are seeing that the JSON payload that is being sent from the client app, we sent an address, and that address is going as encrypted. We are looking at the data that is being sent from the app itself. This is a web app. So we are looking at the HTTP JSON data payload, and we are seeing that it is in encrypted format to show that yes, whatever encryption algorithm we have written is working. And we can see that though we are encrypting it in the server, it gets decrypted and it gets stored as plain text. Here we are showing that associating that thing, and we are testing the service by associating the jar for the post processors, and we see that the address has come same as what we did on the client side with the actual value, that is the unencrypted value back on it. So this is to show one use case of how you can use the metadata functionality with the pre and post processors for any data massaging or data conversion. We have an article as well as document which goes into detail on how to do this, and even a sample app for the specific, encryption use case that we have shown here as part of articles in Basecamp. So let's move on to the next functionality. Here we'll talk about what enhancements we have made into the built-in user repository. So user repository has been available since the first version of Fabric, that is basic identity service, where you go and create a bunch of users as part of an identity service in Fabric, and only people who are there can authenticate if you're using that specific identity service for authentication. So the enhancements that we have done now is prior to SP4, we had only one user repository, and that was the same that was used across the whole account. Now you have option of treating it like an adapter and creating multiple instances of it, so that you can have different groups or a different set of users that can access different services which you're protecting those with that user repository. And you also have the option of creating groups and adding users to group and such. So let's look at a quick demo of how this functionality works. So you go ahead and create a new identity service, for example, of now user repository. And then you go and add users or import users. And then while you are creating the user, you have this drop down here for selecting groups. So you can create a new group here, or you can choose an existing group and just check the checkbox and the user gets added as part of that group. So this is a new functionality that we have added as part of SP4. And next we look at other convenience feature that has been built in, which is the ability to automatically load sample data for storage service. So storage service is the default data storage service that has been available from Fabric since day one. So it is the inbuilt database where you can go and store whatever data you want to view from the app. And earlier you had to manually add the data from a CSV external to the publish flow. So now what we have added is you can link the sample data to the storage object in the Fabric console itself. And when you are publishing the service as part of the reconfiguration, you can choose which sample data to be associated with it. And then you also have the ability to download the storage object template for easy additions later on. So let's look at a short video showing this specific functionality. So here we are seeing this new tab being added called as sample data, where you can upload a zip. So you can download the template first for whatever object service storage object that you have chosen, and it is a CSV. You can open that CSV and go and manually edit it via Excel and add new questions. For example, this is a questionnaire kind of thing, so you are adding a few questions, which is basically data for that storage object. And once you have added it, you save it and zip it up. So here we are zipping the CSV, and then we take the zip and upload it to the specific location in the console. And once it is saved, you go ahead and publish it. And during publish, you choose the configure option because you want to specifically use this data set, and you enable that data set and you publish it. Now, once the service is published, you already have sample data associated with it. So when you test the service from an integration service or anything or object service which you have mapped to that storage object, you will be able to view the data that you have just added and uploaded. So here we see the questions that were uploaded. So this makes it easier to use the storage service. Another new feature that we have added as part of this release is the ability to view audit logs. So audit logs is basically to audit changes that have been done on the console, stuff like, whether when an application was created, who modified, deleted, or published, who did it, or even unpublished for that matter, or when a specific service or has been created, modified. So basically CRUD operations for application, service, or user is being tracked, and you can view the data and filter it by a time range, or if you want to see what specific actions are done by a specific user, or all these filtering abilities are available now as part of audit logs. Audit logs itself is a new feature that has been added in SP4. Now let's look at a short video showing this audit logs feature in action. So you can go to the user settings section, and we have a new tab there called as audit logs. And once you go there, you can see that you can see object, action, object name, modified, and date range. So by default, it shows you all the actions, and it is paginated. You can go through successive tabs. I can apply a filter, as we saw, by app or service or user, and only see actions related to that. So I can choose to see either all the actions, or in this case, I'm just looking for users created within a specific range. And once you apply that, it runs and gives you the data for that specific thing. And you see that, okay, only one user has been created in the date range that they are looking for. So this way you can go ahead and test it and view the data for a lot of other functionality. Like if you're just trying to track when an app was updated or who modified the service, and like, I don't know who changed this, the developer gets angry. You can go and now actually check who did what. Every single change is being tracked, and only admins can view this. Member-only access cannot view the audit logs. If you're an admin or an owner of the particular account, you can go and view the audit logs to see how and what is being done on the console. So let's move on to the next section. We'll now look briefly at what analytics and ability has been added as part of this release. Right. So we have added several features. I'm going to only highlight a couple of them right now. We have added a new report to see the performance of object services. We already had the ability to see performance of a Kony Fabric service in general, but specific to what is object services, we are looking at data in terms of data transferred, in terms of size, in terms of KB, or the duration it took in terms of milliseconds. And you can view that as a chart so that you can quickly identify how the performance is varying depending on size or time, and you can aggregate this report by day, week, month. And you can also filter this data to only view online calls versus offline calls. That is, online is an object service being used in online mode, or offline, which is bulk API. If you're using an offline objects app, it's being used in offline mode. You can only filter and view the data for that. Or if you want to look at only downloaded records or upload records, in case of offline, you can have the option of looking at only specific types of data as an input filter, so that you can run the report for that. We also added a performance detail report, where if you want to see overall how much time it has taken, what was the max time, average data, average records number sent, and max records sent in the time period for every single object service. You can do that as well by using this object service performance detail report. You can export it to an Excel and then go ahead and analyze it for more info. Right. And another thing that has been added into analytics now in SP4 is the ability to view the time spent in child services when an object service or an orchestration service is invoked, which has more than one integration service or child services involved. So basically, say you're having a login, which is an orchestration service calling 3 other services. Earlier, we were able to check only the time spent overall on the login service and not on the component services inside. So you were not able to easily distinguish where the area of improvement is. So now you have that option, and you have the option now for all the service reports, where we have an option to say include child services. So if you have selected that, so for example, here we are showing the case of an orchestration service, which is calling 2 integration services. And we see that the orchestration was taking overall, and this is what the end user sees, right? Because the individual component services are only available on the Kony Fabric service. The end user is only seeing this because he's calling one service and this is the time he sees. But if somebody is trying to optimize and say, yeah, I don't know where is which service is slow, whether it's the second service or the first service. So that information is now available, and you can see that, hey, the time spent on the first service is 743 milliseconds versus the second one is only 30 seconds. So if you want to look at further optimizing something or see where the time is being spent, now this is what you have to target for that. So this kind of detailed, more insight into the component services is now available as part of this release. And we'll now go and look into offline objects. So offline objects, just to introduce for folks that are not familiar with it, it's a new synchronization capability that we had added in V8, and it is for allowing apps to work offline, and it uses the existing Fabric runtime server. It doesn't need any additional runtime. You can download the data and it will store it automatically into SQLite DB, and it uses OData protocol so that it makes it a bit more standard. And we support it now for Kony Visualizer for iOS, Android, SPA, desktop web, PWA, all types of apps literally, and Windows 10 as well. And if you're not using Visualizer but you're building a native app, you can still build it using the Kony SDK for iOS or the Kony Android SDK. It has a lot of functionality, including ability to track the synchronization process, progress, as well as do multiple things in parallel and stuff. So this is just to give you an architecture diagram of offline objects and how it works. So we have the ability to do conflict resolution, put filters to see to only get data what is required for that. If there is a failure, you can roll back. You can batch the data to make it more efficient. You also have an ability to have an upload cache, so that if if the client uploaded something and the backend got it, but before the backend responded, the client got out of network, or it did not get the success package. If it tries again, it should not create duplicate entries on the backend. So you have the option of caching whatever data is uploaded for up to 24 hours on the server, where it will check each and every package, and it uploads only if it is not been uploaded earlier. Also, you have the option of incremental changes. Basically, if you are adding a new field to an existing object, or deleting a field, or deleting an object in an object service, all of that required a client app to be rebuilt, client binary to be rebuilt earlier. Now you have the option of getting this incremental changes from the server at runtime, and if the client is written in a way to handle this new field, it can work basically without any client app update. And you also have multiple synchronization policies where you have the option of only uploading certain records. If something is still in draft, you don't want to upload it, you can set that record to not be uploaded. And there are several such capabilities available as part of offline objects. So the major features that we added in V8 SP4 is first off, support for Windows 10 apps that are built from Kony Visualizer. So now several folks in the energy industry and all still use Windows as their primary platform. Now you can use Kony Visualizer to build offline object apps for Windows 10. We introduced support for SPA in SP3. We have enhanced that support for SPA in desktop web. And we say desktop web, it even works for PWA. And we've also added new APIs for the existing Kony iOS and Android. So for Windows specifically, there are a couple of prerequisites. It has to be a specific build version and a .NET framework version. And we have added ability to do, use the CRUD APIs, that is create, read, update, delete, device DB encryption, filters for download, and host of other things, including hierarchical data support, roll back to last synchronized state, reset the data, batching, and also option to synchronize at an object level, or that is each object in an object service, or you can synchronize at the object service itself, in which all the objects are synchronized at a time. And it also supports multiple synchronization in parallel. We have an article introducing this for Windows 10 in Basecamp. You can have a look at that as well. For SPA, we already had options for CRUD APIs and download filters and batching prior to SP4. What has been added in SP4 is the ability to do a cascade delete. That is, if you have linked a parent and child object, and if you delete the parent, the child also has to get deleted. Now you can do the cascade deleted options also from SP4. And support for hierarchy as is. That is, it notes that, okay, if you have specified that this is the parent, this is the child and siblings and all that. So if the parent is synchronized, all its child has to be synchronized. So that kind of hierarchical relationship and downloading, respecting that hierarchy, has been added in SP4. And we have also added the option of rolling back to the last successful sync state. We have an article for talking about this as well in Basecamp. You can have a look at that. And new APIs for V8 SP4 as is, we have added option of bulk delete and update using a var class. So basically, you can say that all records that have been updated, modified since today morning, I want to do some global update. I want to add, say, a date tag for it. Then you can do a filter and you can do a bulk update and bulk delete for these kind of things which have been added. You can also do a synchronization at an application level. We had support for object and object services prior to this, but we have added an application level sync now. And we also have added APIs for getting information like, I don't know what records have changed since my last upload, what is pending. I just want to look at what is there in my local system but not uploaded. I want to just get that information. You can do that. And we have also made improvements to the overall sync download performance by preserving the batch context and stuff like that. We have also added a new API to get status of binary, like whether it has been downloaded, not downloaded, and stuff like that. Let's now look at the updates that we have done to the engagement services piece of the Kony fabric. So as Faizan earlier explained, we have added the support to do web pushes to the PWA app. We'll shortly see a video of how that works from the engagement server perspective, as Faizan has already showed us the client-side perspective. And we have also added new features to restart and delete, and we'll just look through them quickly to this. So web pushes, we always had the option of iOS and Android native app pushes. In this release, we have added the support for web. Web pushes are supported only via Google FCM currently, right? And it behaves very similar to native push, and all the engagement server console dashboard and all that will show the web push reports, and it has support for ad hoc campaigns and event notification channels. You can also make use of templates to send the web push, right? And all the web push functionality, you can see it via the engagement console, or you can also make use of it using the engagement APIs. So here we'll see a quick video of how this is done. So this is the engagement console dashboard. You can see that web is now shown as a new channel on the devices per platform. We always had iOS, Android, Windows, and now we have web as a new channel that is being shown. And you register for this just like you do register for a native app. I'm sorry, a native user. So you go to the platforms and so in the web section of the settings, you can see the FCM authorization key that you're doing. You can test the connectivity to check if your FCM key is fine. And in the subscribers list, like just you had the Android and iOS devices, even web devices, you can see the unique identifier for those and the app with which it has been registered. So the subscription, registration, and push notification process is very similar between web and the earlier available native channels. So here we'll go and send an ad hoc push message to a specific app, and we have chosen, we are trying to choose subscribers. We are choosing specific people that we already saw in the previous page. And now we are going to go and have the option of sending a standard or a silent push. You can set a title and send the message. So here we are sending it with a specific icon and a click action that happens when that message is being sent. As soon as you send, you see the push coming on the bottom right, showing the specific push that we just sent with the content and the click action, so that it works like a regular push. And now you can see the status of the push. So it behaves in all cases very similar to the existing push capability. So I have added the option of the deleting and rerunning existing campaigns. We are kind of close to the time, so I'll run through this. We have added the ability to create users with French characters because earlier it was only supporting ASCII. And we have also added support to create push templates with the titles. And this is a new functionality. And you have option of segregating and creating segments with OS type now. And this can be used again from console or API. So let us quickly look at App Factory. App Factory is basically Kony's CI/CD solution. It is to build, test, and distribute, right? So user goes and he checks in the project into Git, and the continuous integration triggers an auto build, or user can go and manually create an auto build, and it builds for Windows or Android or web apps and even kiosks, and you can run them parallelly. Once the build is complete, you can send an email to the user. You can also store the result to view it later. It deploys the backend services to runtime, and it automatically triggers whatever test suite that you have created for that to run on the device farm. And once the testing is complete, it will again send the test results to the user as well as store the results for further viewing. It also can deploy that to the App Store or do a web app deployment. So what features have been added as part of SP4 is specifically cloud build. We already saw it as part of Faizan's listing, where you can build binaries now using the visualizer starter itself. It is actually making use of App Factory components in the backend. We have added support for Fabric migration, Fabric build scheduler, and enhanced test execution. So let's quickly look through them. So Fabric migrations, we already had support for export and import of Fabric configuration from the server. What we have now done is the ability to automatically set up a migration job, which will take the data from one service, one source, and push it to a target config. So this migrate job is new. So we'll just quickly see how it does. So you have a source and destination for the thing, and the source and destination can be two different environments in the same account or be different accounts. But as long as you've given the credentials, you can log in, get the data from here, and push it. And so if you want to push the configs, from dev to set to on a daily basis, or you can create a job for that, you can do all of this now automatically for Kony Fabric server as well, right? And we have also added a new feature to schedule jobs for Fabric. We had always the option of building client-side binaries at manual or at a nightly build or hourly build or stuff like that. With the SP4, we have added that option to do that even for Fabric server, where you can pick the configuration, say, and every night you can upload it from dev to set and so on. So you have the option of creating a schedule for Fabric. For testing, we have always been using Appium, and we received a lot of feedback on testing that it was testing on AWS has been slow, or it can only run 40 to 50 tests and stuff like that. We've made a lot of improvements to this. The improvement performance has gone up almost 50%, and we have now added support for TestNG. TestNG allows testing specific flows and testing in a specific order. For example, if you want to test only accounts flow but not some other flow, you can do that. So you can see the test resources from the visualizer app, and you can define the tests, and you can see the TestNG XML. TestNG is the default name that we give. You can change it to whatever else you want. And once you have created the test, you go to App Factory, and while running, you choose what tests to run. So you can specify one or multiple. You can keep them comma separated. So for example, if you want to run accounts and then followed by bill pay or something else, you can keep them comma separated, and you can write those XML files one after the other. So here we have testng.xml as the first one. Then we have added a testing 2 and testing 3 and so on. So you can basically run it in terms of modules and prioritize what to run, and it will finish the first one and then go to the next one and so on. So this gives you more flexibility for doing the test portion using App Factory. And we have the option of now customizing the results of the test run so that we can make it looking a bit more nice. So since we have only limited time, there are a lot more features that we have built, which we can't go into detail. I have listed them here. We have added the support for mock.json as a new adapter type, added preprocessor support for orchestration service, added option of concurrent looping and orchestration. We also added an option to import a zip file to SOAP, or support new OData methods for database connector like substring or toolover. We also have option of reconfiguring schema names now in our database as part of publish. So basically, if you want to use one schema for dev, you want to use a different schema, and for say QA, you want to use a different schema, but it is the same database. You just want to change the schema name. You have that option now as part of SP4. You also have enhanced delete operation, object and integration services. You have support for direct SAP integration via JCO. For on-prem, we have also added support of importing and exporting custom reports and dashboards if you're using multiple accounts, or import from one place and export to another. For on-prem, we have also had people asking for, we want a reports-only user who should not be able to access anything else. That support also has been added to make a reports-only user. It already exists in cloud, but the feature has been added to on-premise. We have also added ability to test orchestration service from console. And we know you have a lot of apps sometimes in the console, and you want to ensure your favorite apps are at the top. So now you can pin any app as favorite, and that will be stuck at the top of your app page in console. And you can also select what API services are to be exposed in an API developer portal. So if you want to only enable select set of services for a specific vendor and another set of services for a specific vendor, you have the option of doing that now with the API developer portal. And from a DevOps perspective, we have added enhanced the logs UI in admin console, and we have also added an option of classifying sessions as interactive and non-interactive. Interactive is basically if a user is launching the application, when non-interactive is the OS, or say a push message coming in Android renders it, and then this is run as a background process, so you can classify them using this release. For the multi-tenant or community edition of Kony Fabric, we have also added support for uploading SSL certs for the backend, and SSL import has been added for multi-tenant as well. And the trace logs, which is basically the database logs for looking at the full request response, that the performance of that also has been significantly improved in this release. So for more info, you can go to the Kony Basecamp What's New section, or the hikes, as Faizan already pointed, and the documentation links would be there for further studies. And the quantum page also has been highlighted here. And yeah, ensure you don't forget to take the quiz once you are quantum ready. With that, Tanmay, back to you.
Thank you so much, Suhas. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Faizan, for taking this session. It was indeed a very good session, very detailed one, with the demo and videos that you have presented today. It was really useful, and I hope the audience today it's equally useful for them also, who has joined us today. Thank you, everybody, for joining this session today. You will see the recording today. By the end of the day today, or maybe by tomorrow, you will see the recording on the same article where you have registered. So make sure you keep an eye on that, and you can share that video, the recording video, with your friends, or somebody who has not joined today. Now this will be available under articles, or you can go to basecamp.kony.com/s/events page. Let me ping you the link in the chat window. And then from there, you will see a widget which says recorded webinars, and then you can see the recorded webinars over there. Let me just very quickly give you the link in the chat window. Yeah, so this is the link, basecamp.kony.com/s/events. There you can go and see the recorded webinars widget. So by tomorrow, or maybe by the end of the day today, you will see the recorded version. I've seen all the questions. They are all answered. So thank you all the panelists, moderators who have moderated the session today. You have quickly answered all the questions. I don't see any question pending. If you still have questions, guys, you can still post it. We are here for a few minutes. We can answer. And if you want to ask later, you can go to Basecamp forum and ask questions over there. We have a big community who can answer you very quickly. Now, what you see on screen, we have a Facebook group. You can join this group if you want, and we'll keep you posted about the events that we do, any future events that we have. You can join from there, and you'll be updated. You can also join our YouTube channel, which is bit.ly, it's bit.ly/base-camp-channel. You can visit this link and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also post webinar recordings over there, so you can follow that channel and listen to all the recorded webinars that we have done so far. Follow us on Twitter with Kony hashtag Kony Basecamp. We do a lot of tweets about events, about what is happening, about Kony Quantum, and a lot more. So follow us on Twitter if you want to really see what is happening in Kony and what we are up to. And then I will take you to one slide. So we are doing meetup in Hyderabad. So if you're in Hyderabad or if you are traveling to Hyderabad around March 29th, please do visit in Hyderabad. The event venue is there. You can come and listen to Kony CTO Bill Bowden. He's going to talk about artificial intelligence and how this is going to impact, artificial intelligence is going to impact the future of app development. This will be very interesting. So the event information is also on Basecamp. Go ahead on Basecamp and register for this event so that we reserve a spot for you. And then our next webinar is on March 27th, which is about the myths and future of low-code development platforms. You can register. Again, the information is available on Basecamp. Go ahead and register so that you get proper invitation and plus reminders to join the event. So that's about it. Lastly, I want to just highlight about the resource and news page that we have set up on Basecamp. So you can go to bit.ly/quantum resource news, quantum-resource-news. Go to this link, and you will see a lot of resource about our new quantum release. Plus, there is a small quiz that will get you the readiness badge, plus some points, some reputation points on Basecamp. So make sure whenever you are ready with quantum, whenever you access all the resource and news available on the resource and news page, make sure that you follow this quiz and complete it to get a badge. It will be reflected on your Basecamp profile the moment you complete the quiz. So thank you, everybody. If there are no questions, feel free to post it on Basecamp, and we'll surely give you answers. I still see 2 questions, so we are still here for a few minutes, and then we can close the session. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you so much.